After decades of carefully guarded silence, Dame Julie Andrews, now 90 years old, has finally decided to speak. The woman who charmed the world, as Mary Poppins, who brought magic to millions of children, has kept one of Hollywood's most intriguing secrets locked away for over half a century. Today, she breaks that silence about her complex relationship with the legendary Walt Disney himself. What she reveals will forever change how you see the man behind the magic and the untold story of what really happened behind the scenes of one of cinema's most beloved films. In 1961, a relatively unknown British stage actress walked into Walt Disney's office, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. Julie Andrews had conquered Broadway with My Fair Lady, but Hollywood remained an elusive dream. Little did the world know, this meeting would spark one of the most complicated professional relationships in entertainment history. But Walt Disney sat behind his massive oak desk, cigarette smoke curling around his weathered face as he studied the young woman before him. At 55, Disney had built an empire on fairy tales and family entertainment, but he was searching for something or someone who could bring his most ambitious live-action project to life. Mary Poppins wasn't just another film for Disney. It was his attempt to prove that he could create magic beyond animation. "Sing for me," Disney commanded, his piercing eyes never leaving Julie's face. What happened next was pure enchantment, as Julie's crystalline voice filled the room with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, a song that didn't even exist, yet Disney's expression transformed. For the first time in years, the master of make-believe looked genuinely surprised. But beneath Disney's obvious delight lay something Julie couldn't quite decipher, calculating intensity that made her skin prickle with unease. Years later, she would describe this moment as both the greatest opportunity of her life and the beginning of her most challenging professional relationship. Disney had found his Mary Poppins, but Julie Andrews had unknowingly walked into a web of creative control, artistic manipulation, and psychological complexity that would haunt her for decades. The contract was signed within weeks, but the real drama was only just beginning. Disney's obsession with perfection wasn't just about the film, it was about molding Julie Andrews into his vision of the perfect leading lady. Regardless of the personal cost, the Walt Disney that Julie Andrews encountered was nothing like the grandfatherly figure the public adored. Away from cameras and publicity events, Disney ruled his studio with an iron fist, demanding absolute control over every aspect of his productions, including his stars' personal lives. He wasn't the gentle uncle figure everyone thought they knew, Julie reveals, her voice carrying the weight of long-held memories. Walt was brilliant, visionary, but also incredibly controlling. He had very specific ideas about how his leading ladies should behave, both on and off screen. During the grueling 80-month production of Mary Poppins, Disney monitored Julie's every move. He dictated her publicity appearances, controlled her interviews, and even had opinions about her personal relationships. When rumors surfaced about her struggling marriage to Tony Walton, Disney summoned her to his office for what he called a friendly chat. The conversation was anything but friendly. Disney made it clear that Mary Poppins represented wholesome family values, and any scandal, real or perceived, could destroy the carefully crafted image he was building around his new star. Julie found herself trapped between her authentic self and Disney's manufactured persona. For her studio insiders whispered about Disney's notorious temper, his habit of screaming at executives behind closed doors, and his obsessive need to micromanage every detail. But for Julie, the pressure was even more intense. Disney saw her not just as an actress, but as the embodiment of his idealized vision of feminine perfectional living. Breathing Disney princess who must never step out of line. The psychological toll was immense. Julie began experiencing anxiety attacks, something she had never dealt with before. Yet she persevered, knowing that Mary Poppins could launch her film career. What she didn't know was how deeply Disney's controlling nature would affect her for years to come. Mary Poppins premiered on August 27, 1964, and became an instant cultural phenomenon. Audiences worldwide fell in love with Julie Andrews' magical nanny, her perfect diction, and that unforgettable spoonful of sugar. The film earned over $100 million worldwide, a staggering sum for 1964, and established Julie as Hollywood royalty overnight. But success came with unexpected changes. Disney's marketing machine had created something more powerful than a movie star. They had crafted a living icon. Julie Andrews was no longer just an actress. She was Mary Poppins in the public consciousness, forever associated with primness, perfection, and practically perfect behavior. Walt had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams, Julie reflects, but I became a prisoner of that success. I couldn't make a move without someone asking if Mary Poppins would approve. It was suffocating. Disney, meanwhile, was basking in the glory of his greatest live-action triumph. He had proven that his magic extended beyond animation, and Julie Andrews was his golden ticket to continued success. Industry insiders reported that Disney became even more possessive of his newfound star, treating her less like a collaborator and more like a valuable asset to be protected and controlled. The Oscar buzz began almost immediately. Critics praised Julie's performance as transcendent, and Disney launched an aggressive campaign for her nomination. But behind the scenes, tensions were mounting. Julie wanted to explore different roles to prove her range as an actress. But Disney had other plans. He envisioned a series of Mary Poppins films, with Julie forever tied to the character that made her famous. The success that should have been purely joyous became a source of profound conflict. Julie loved the character and was grateful for the opportunity, but she was beginning to realize that Walt Disney's vision for her career might not align with her own artistic aspirations. While Mary Poppins was still in production, 20th Century Fox came calling with an offer that would change everything. They wanted Julie Andrews for a little musical called The Sound of Music, and Disney was furious. The man who preached about family values and wholesome entertainment was about to learn a harsh lesson about the business of Hollywood. The battle for Julie's services became legendary in industry circles. Disney had assumed that his exclusive contract with Julie would prevent any such conflicts, but her representatives had negotiated more carefully than he realized. Legally, Julie was free to work for other studios between Disney projects, but Disney felt betrayed by what he saw as disloyalty. Walt called me into his office, and I could see the rage in his eyes, Julie recalls. He didn't raise his voice, but his coldness was more frightening than any shouting. He told me that if I did The Sound of Music, it would be a mistake I'd regret for the rest of my career. Disney's threat was clear. Choose loyalty to him and Disney Studios, or risk his eternal enmity. For a young actress still establishing her career, it was a terrifying ultimatum. But Julie had fallen in love with the role of Maria von Trapp, and something deep within her rebelled against Disney's controlling demands. The decision to proceed with The Sound of Music marked a turning point in Julie's relationship with Disney. What had been a complex but professionally respectful partnership transformed into something much colder. Disney felt personally betrayed, and he wasn't a man who forgot or forgave easily. Industry veterans watched the drama unfold with fascination. Here was Walt Disney, the most powerful man in family entertainment, locked in a battle of wills with the actress he had discovered and molded. The stakes were enormous, and everyone wondered who would emerge victorious. The Sound of Music's unprecedented success in 1965 should have been celebrated by everyone who cared about Julie Andrews' career. The film became the highest movie of all time, a record it held for 5 years, and Julie's performance as Maria von Trapp earned her a second Oscar nomination. But in Walt Disney's office, the celebration was notably absent. Disney's reaction to Julie's triumph was swift and calculated. He began systematically distancing himself from his former protege, making subtle but unmistakable moves that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Studio executives whispered about Disney's icy demeanor whenever Julie's name was mentioned, and suddenly, future Disney projects that might have been perfect for her went to other actresses. The change was immediate and devastating. Julie reveals, her voice heavy with remembered pain. Overnight, I went from being Walt's golden girl to persona non grata. Phone calls weren't returned, meetings were canceled, and the warm relationship we'd built during Mary Poppins simply evaporated. Disney's revenge was particularly cruel because it was so subtle. He never publicly criticized Julie or made obvious moves against her. Instead, he employed the quiet assassination that only most powerful figures could execute. Word spread through the industry that Disney was disappointed in Julie's choices, and in a town where Disney's approval could make or break careers, that disappointment carried enormous weight. The psychological impact on Julie was profound. She had gone from being supported by one of Hollywood's most powerful men to being subtly undermined by him. The stress began affecting her performances, her confidence, and her relationships. She found herself second-guessing every career decision, wondering if Disney's disapproval would follow her forever. Meanwhile, Disney threw himself into other projects with renewed intensity, as if proving to himself and the industry that he didn't need Julie Andrews to create magic. But those close to him noticed a change of bitterness that hadn't been there before, a sense that his perfect creation had somehow betrayed him. By 1966, both Julie Andrews and Walt Disney were suffering from their estrangement, though neither would admit it publicly. Disney missed working with the actress who had brought his vision to life so perfectly, while Julie longed for the creative validation that only Disney seemed able to provide. What happened next was a series of secret meetings that remained hidden from the public for decades. The first attempt at reconciliation came through intermediaries, mutual friends in the industry, who recognized that both parties were being hurt by their stubborn pride. Sherman Brothers, the songwriting duo who had created Mary Poppins' unforgettable music, served as unofficial ambassadors, shuttling between Disney's office and Julie's representatives. Dick and Bob Sherman told me that Walt missed working with me, Julie reveals. They said he had been considering me for several upcoming projects but couldn't bring himself to make the first move. His pride wouldn't allow it. The secret meeting took place at the Beverly Hills Hotel, in a private dining room away from prying eyes. Disney arrived first, chain-smoking nervously, a habit that was becoming more pronounced as his health declined. When Julie entered, the tension was palpable. These two giants of entertainment, who had created movie magic together, sat across from each other like former lovers attempting to bridge an impossible divide. Disney spoke first, his voice carefully controlled. He didn't apologize, Walt Disney never apologized, but he acknowledged that their estrangement was hurting them both. Julie listened carefully, recognizing the olive branch beneath Disney's carefully chosen words. For a moment, it seemed like reconciliation was possible. But then, Disney made his conditions clear. He would welcome Julie back, but she would need to prove her loyalty. No more outside projects without his approval. No more decisions that prioritized other studios over Disney. In essence, he wanted complete control over her career. The meeting ended in disappointment. Neither was willing to compromise their fundamental positions, and the gulf between them remained unbridged. As the 1960s progressed, those close to Walt Disney began noticing alarming changes. The man who had built an entertainment empire through sheer force of will was showing signs of the toll his lifestyle had taken. Chain smoking, stress, and his obsessive work habits were catching up with him. But Disney refused to slow down. The estrangement from Julie Andrews seemed to weigh heavily on his mind during this period. Studio executives reported that Disney would sometimes mention her name during meetings, his voice taking on a wistful quality that was uncharacteristic for the typically businesslike mogul. He had other successful projects, other talented performers, but Mary Poppins remained his greatest live-action triumph, and Julie Andrews was inextricably linked to that success. I heard through mutual friends that Walt wasn't well, Julie recalls, her voice softening with genuine concern. Despite everything that had happened between us, I still cared about him. He had given me the opportunity of a lifetime, and I couldn't forget that, even though our relationship had soured. Disney's final years were marked by increasingly ambitious projects, Disneyland expansions, Epcot plans, and grand visions for the future. But those who knew him well could see that he was driven by more than just creative passion. He seemed to be racing against time, trying to secure his legacy before it was too late. The irony wasn't lost on industry observers. Walt Disney, the man who had created timeless magic for children around the world, was facing his own mortality while his relationship with one of his greatest discoveries remained broken. The fairy tale creator couldn't write a happy ending for his own story. In late 1966, Disney was diagnosed with lung cancer. The prognosis was grim, and suddenly, the petty grievances and wounded pride that had driven their estrangement seemed, tragically, insignificant. But it might already be too late for reconciliation. On December 15, 1966, Walt Disney died at St. Joseph Hospital in Burbank, taking with him not just his creative genius, but also the unresolved tensions that had defined his relationship with Julie Andrews. But in his final weeks, Disney had done something that would haunt Julie for decades. He had sent her a message. The letter arrived 3 days after Disney's death, delivered by his longtime secretary with a note explaining that Disney had dictated it during his final hospitalization but had struggled with whether to send it. In the end, he had sealed it with instructions that it be delivered only after his passing. When I opened that letter, my hands were shaking. Julie remembers, tears visible in her eyes even now. Walt's words were both an apology and an accusation, a farewell and a final attempt to make me understand his perspective. Disney's message was deeply personal, more vulnerable than anything he had ever shared with Julie during their professional relationship. He acknowledged that his controlling nature had damaged their partnership, but he also explained his motivations in ways that revealed the insecure man behind the confident mogul. He wrote about his fear that Julie's success with other studios would diminish what they had created. Together with Mary Poppins, he confessed that watching her triumph in The Sound of Music had filled him with both pride and jealousy. Pride in her achievement, jealousy that another studio had benefited from the talent he had nurtured. Most significantly, Disney revealed that he had been planning a Mary Poppins sequel specifically designed to repair their relationship. He had envisioned it as their grand reconciliation project, a chance to recapture the magic they had created together. The outline for Mary Poppins comes back. Died with him. The letter ended with words that Julie has never forgotten. You were the closest I ever came to creating a real-life fairy tale princess. I'm sorry we couldn't find our way back to Wonderland. After Disney's death, Julie Andrews faced a complex emotional landscape that would define the next phase of her career. The man who had discovered her, controlled her, and ultimately estranged himself from her was gone, leaving behind a legacy that was inextricably tied to her own success. The guilt she felt was overwhelming. For years, I wondered if things could have been different, Julie confesses. What if I had been more understanding of Walt's position? What if I had prioritized our relationship over other opportunities? The what-ifs consumed me for a long time. The entertainment industry's reaction to Disney's death was an outpouring of tributes and remembrances. With countless stars sharing stories of his genius and generosity, Julie found herself in an impossible position, able to share her complex experiences without seeming ungrateful. yet haunted by the unresolved nature of their relationship. Mary Poppins continued to be celebrated as one of Disney's greatest achievements, and Julie's performance remained the gold standard for musical film acting. But every accolade, every retrospective screening, every anniversary celebration served as a reminder of the fractured relationship with the man who had made it all possible. The sequel Disney had envisioned never materialized in the way he had planned. Julie was approached multiple times over the years about returning to the role, but without Disney's guiding vision, the projects never felt authentic to her. She had become protective of the Mary Poppins legacy, recognizing that it represented not just her breakthrough role, but also her final connection to Walt Disney. Professionally, Julie's career flourished in new directions. She worked with other legendary directors, took on challenging dramatic roles, and proved her versatility as a performer. But she never again experienced the unique creative partnership she had shared with Disney. That magical collaboration between visionary director and perfectly matched performer. In 1995, nearly 20 years after Walt Disney's death, construction workers renovating his private office made an extraordinary discovery. Hidden behind a false wall was a collection of audio recordings, private tapes that Disney had made during his final years, apparently as a form of personal journal or therapeutic outlet. Among these recordings were several hours of Disney discussing his relationships with various stars and collaborators, including extensive commentary about Julie Andrews that had never been shared with anyone during his lifetime. The Disney family, recognizing the sensitive nature of these recordings, kept them locked away for decades. When the Disney family finally shared those tapes with me in 2010, it was like hearing from Walt beyond the grave, Julie reveals. His voice was exactly as I remembered, that distinctive Midwestern accent, the careful way he chose his words. But the content was unlike anything he had ever said to me directly. On the tapes, Disney revealed the depth of his admiration for Julie's talent and professionalism. He spoke about watching her work with a sense of wonder, describing her as the most naturally gifted performer he had ever encountered. But he also confessed to his own insecurities and fears about losing control over his carefully constructed empire. Most remarkably, Disney used the tapes to practice conversations he planned to have with Julie, rehearsing apologies he was too proud to deliver, working through explanations for his behavior that he could never bring himself to share. The recordings revealed a man tormented by his own perfectionism and his inability to separate his business interests from his personal relationships. One particularly poignant recording found Disney imagining what Mary Poppins sequel might look like, describing elaborate musical sequences and character development with the enthusiasm of a child planning a birthday party. His voice was filled with excitement as he envisioned working with Julie again, creating new magic together. These tapes provided Julie with the closure she had sought for decades, but they also opened new wounds. Hearing Disney's private thoughts about their relationship made his death seem fresh again, and the missed opportunities for reconciliation even more tragic. When Disney Studios announced plans for Mary Poppins Returns in 2016, Julie Andrews faced the most emotionally complex decision of her later career. The studio approached her about reprising her iconic role, offering her the chance to return to the character that had defined her career, and to honor Walt Disney's original vision. The offer was everything Disney had dreamed of during his lifetime: chance to continue Mary Poppins' story with the actress who had originated the role. But for Julie, now in her 80s, the decision was fraught with emotional complexity that went far beyond simple career considerations. They wanted me to play Balloon Lady, a small but significant role that would have brought Mary Poppins full circle, Julie explains. It would have been a beautiful tribute to Walt's memory and a gift to fans who had grown up with the original film. But I couldn't do it. Julie's decision to decline the role shocked many in Hollywood and disappointed countless fans. But her reasons were deeply personal and tied directly to her complicated relationship with Walt Disney. She felt that returning to the Mary Poppins universe without Disney's creative guidance would somehow diminish the magic they had created together. Mary Poppins belonged to Walt and me in a very specific way, she reflects. Our creative partnership, despite its difficulties, had produced something truly special. I didn't want to risk tarnishing that legacy by trying to recreate magic without the magician. The decision was also influenced by her desire to allow a new generation to discover their own Mary Poppins. Emily Blunt's casting in the titular role represented a passing of the torch that Julie wanted to respect, even if it meant stepping away from the character that had made her famous. Behind the scenes, Julie worked closely with the filmmakers to ensure that Mary Poppins Returns honored Disney's original vision while creating something new and relevant for contemporary audiences. Her blessing and guidance became a crucial element in the film's development. Even without her physical presence on screen, in recent years, Julie Andrews has worked with a therapist who specializes in helping elderly clients process complex relationships from their past. These sessions, which Julie describes as both challenging and liberating, have allowed her to examine her relationship with Walt Disney through the lens of decades of life experience and emotional growth. At 90, I have the luxury of perspective that I didn't have at 30, Julie observes. I can see Walt's behavior not just as controlling or manipulative, but as the actions of a deeply insecure man who had built his entire identity around maintaining control over his creative output. Through therapy, Julie has come to understand that Disney's treatment of her was part of a larger pattern of behavior that affected many of his relationships. His need to control extended far beyond their professional partnership, encompassing his family life, his business dealings, and his personal friendships. Walt was a genius, but he was also profoundly damaged by his childhood experiences and his early struggles in the entertainment industry. Julie reflects. His controlling behavior wasn't really about MIT, it was about his own fears and insecurities. This new understanding has allowed Julie to feel genuine forgiveness for Disney's actions, not because she condones his behavior, but because she recognizes the pain that drove it. She has also gained insight into her own responses to his control. Understanding how her people-pleasing tendencies and desire for approval made her particularly vulnerable to his manipulation. The therapy process has been particularly valuable in helping Julie separate Walt Disney, the man, from Walt Disney, the icon. She can now celebrate his creative genius and acknowledge his contributions to her career while also maintaining healthy boundaries around the parts of their relationship that were harmful. Most importantly, these sessions have helped Julie reclaim her own narrative, recognizing that her success was not simply a product of Disney's vision but a result of her own talent, hard work, and artistic choices. Julie's revelations about Walt Disney have opened the door to broader conversations about power dynamics in Hollywood's golden age. Her story is not unique, it's part of a larger pattern of powerful men in the entertainment industry using their positions to control and manipulate the careers of young performers, particularly women. Looking back now, I can see that what happened to me with Walt was happening to countless other actresses throughout Hollywood, Julie observes. The difference was that Walt wasn't interested in sexual control, his obsession was with creative and professional domination. Industry historians have noted that Disney's behavior toward his female stars followed a consistent pattern: initial discovery and nurturing, followed by increasing control and possessiveness, and ultimately punishment for any perceived disloyalty. Julie Andrews was perhaps the most high-profile example, but she was not the only one. The broader context makes Disney's actions even more troubling, revealing them as part of a systemic abuse of power that characterized Hollywood's studio system. Young performers, eager for success and lacking industry experience, were particularly vulnerable to this type of manipulation. We didn't have the language then to describe what was happening to us, Julie explains. Terms like toxic workplace and psychological manipulation weren't part of our vocabulary. We just knew that something felt wrong, but we didn't have the tools to address it. Julie's willingness to speak openly about her experiences has encouraged other performers from that era to share their own stories, creating a more complete picture of what life was really like for actors under the studio system. These revelations have helped younger performers recognize and resist similar patterns of control in contemporary Hollywood. The conversation has also led to important reforms in industry practices, with unions and guilds implementing stronger protections for performers and clearer guidelines about appropriate professional relationships between directors and actors. One of the most challenging aspects of Julie's revelations has been helping fans reconcile their love for Disney's creative output with the troubling aspects of his personality and behavior. Mary Poppins remains a beloved classic, but how should audiences view it knowing about the complex and sometimes harmful relationship between its star and creator? I've struggled with this question for decades, Julie admits. Can we celebrate the art while acknowledging the artist's flaws? I believe we can, but it requires honesty about both the magic and the darkness. Julie's approach has been to encourage fans to appreciate Mary Poppins and Disney's other works for what they represent: genuine artistic achievements that have brought joy to millions of people while also understanding the human cost of their creation. She believes that Disney's personal failings don't diminish the value of his creative contributions, but they do provide important context for understanding how those contributions came to be. Walt Disney was not a villain, but he wasn't the saintly figure many people imagined him to be, Julie explains. He was a complex, flawed human being who created beautiful things while also causing pain to people he cared about. That's a very human story, even if it's not the fairy tale ending we might prefer. This nuanced view has influenced how Julie discusses her own career and legacy. She remains proud of Mary Poppins and grateful for the opportunities it provided, but she also uses her platform to educate others about the importance of healthy professional relationships and the dangers of unchecked power in creative industries. The conversation has also extended to how Disney's current leadership approaches their company's legacy, with increased attention to creating more equitable and respectful working environments that honor Walt Disney's creative vision while rejecting his more problematic management practices. Julie's revelations have ultimately enhanced rather than diminished appreciation for her work in Disney's by providing a more complete and honest understanding of how great art sometimes emerges from imperfect circumstances. As Julie Andrews approaches her 90th birthday, her perspective on her relationship with Walt Disney has evolved into something approaching wisdom. The anger and confusion that once characterized her feelings about their partnership have given way to a deeper understanding of human nature and the complex dynamics that drive creative collaboration. If I could go back and do it all again, I'm not sure I would change anything. Julie reflects with surprising candor. The pain and conflict were real, but they were also part of a journey that taught me invaluable lessons about standing up for myself and maintaining my artistic integrity. Julie's final message about Disney is one of gratitude mixed with hard-won wisdom. She acknowledges that without his vision and determination, Mary Poppins would never have existed, and her own career might have taken a very different path. But she also wants young performers to understand that professional success should never come at the cost of personal dignity or psychological well-being. Walt Disney gave me the greatest gift an actor can receive, a role that will live forever, she states, but he also taught me, perhaps unintentionally, that no creative partnership is worth sacrificing your sense of self. Both lessons have been invaluable. In her final analysis, Julie sees her relationship with Disney as a cautionary tale about the importance of healthy professional boundaries, but also as a testament to the power of artistic collaboration when it works. The magic they created together transcended their personal difficulties, producing something that has brought joy to generations of fans. Mary Poppins will outlive both Walt and me, Julie concludes with a gentle smile. In the end, that's what matters most. The magic we created together was bigger than our human flaws and petty conflicts. It was practically perfect in every way, even if we weren't. Her story serves as both inspiration and warning, showing how great art can emerge from imperfect relationships while also demonstrating the importance of maintaining one's dignity and integrity in the face of controlling behavior. Julie Andrews' final silence has been broken, and in sharing her truth, she has given the world something even more valuable than Mary Poppins: a deeper understanding of what it means to survive and thrive in an industry that can be both magical and brutal, sometimes simultaneously. As we reach the end of Julie Andrews' remarkable revelation, we're left with a story that is both heartbreaking and inspiring, troubling and ultimately triumphant. The woman who taught us that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down has given us the most difficult medicine of all: the truth about our heroes and the complex reality behind the magic we cherish. Dame Julie Andrews' decision to break her silence at 90 represents more than just the sharing of Hollywood secrets. It's a masterclass in how to process difficult relationships, how to find forgiveness without excusing harmful behavior, and how to maintain one's dignity while honoring the positive aspects of a complex legacy. Her story reminds us that the people who create our most beloved entertainment are human beings with all the flaws and contradictions that entails. Walt Disney was neither the perfect father figure his public image suggested, nor the monster that his worst behaviors might imply. He was a brilliant, troubled man who created lasting magic while also causing real pain to people he cared about. Julie Andrews has given us permission to love Mary Poppins while also understanding the human cost of its creation. She has shown us that acknowledging darkness doesn't diminish light. It makes us appreciate that light even more fully. As we reflect on this extraordinary revelation, we're reminded that the most powerful stories are often the most complex ones. Julie Andrews and Walt Disney created something magical together, and that magic endures despite and, perhaps, because of the very human struggles that surrounded its creation. What do you think about Julie Andrews' revelations? How do you reconcile loving Disney's work while acknowledging his personal flaws? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from Hollywood's golden age. Sometimes, the most important tales are the ones that take a lifetime of courage to tell.